Joel 2 states that the pouring out of the latter rain will be even more substantial than the pouring out of the early rain. So what can we expect today when the Holy Spirit is poured out in latter rain power?
That's an exciting question, because Christians throughout the ages have been looking forward so much to that latter rain being poured out. And in the book of Joel, we do read that there would be an early rain and a latter rain of the Holy Spirit. And Joel uses agricultural symbolism to indicate that under the early rain and then the latter rain, there would be a full maturity of the crops in the agricultural symbolism there. And so what that's telling us, that under the early rain baptism of the Holy Spirit, which became available on the day of Pentecost, we are to start growing into the fullness of Jesus. And the way that happens is that Christ lives in us through the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And as we grow in this process, like Paul says, he was praying for them in the churches until Christ be formed in them. So here's this process of Christ being formed in us. So under the early rain, Christ begins being formed in us because he's living in us. And we learn how to turn to him when we're tempted, for instance. I'm starting to lose my patience, and I say, Lord, give me your patience. And so I learn how to let Jesus be manifest. Well, what happens in the latter rain, the Holy Spirit comes in even greater power, and Christ will even be more fully manifest in every Christian that has grown under the early rain and the latter rain of the Holy Spirit. Now, the reason that's important, it says in 1 John chapter 3, verse 2, that when Jesus comes back, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Now, that's a very significant statement, because that means when Jesus comes back, we have to be just like him to be ready. Does that mean we got to try harder to mimic Jesus? No. We need to come to the point where Jesus is shining out of our life 100%. Full maturity in Jesus. That's what the early rain and latter rain will do for the individual Christian. Also, the Holy Spirit is given not only for us personally, but for the gospel to go to the world. So as the early rain becomes more of an experience in the Christian church and in the Adventist church, and then as the latter rain comes, we're going to see an evangelism explosion. Now, that doesn't mean God's not blessing now. He is, and there are blessings. But there's going to be blessings beyond our imagination, an explosion of the three angels' message going throughout the world, what we have traditionally called the loud cry, going in great power, and we're going to see thousands and thousands responding to the last day message, because the Spirit will be here, not only in early rain power, but in latter rain power. And that's how in Revelation 18:1, it describes the earth is lightened with the glory of God. That's his character. So Christ is being seen 100% in his people. The glory of God is filling this earth through his people. The gospel is going forth in great power. The three angels' message in preparation for Christ's coming. So some amazing days lay ahead for us as we experience the early rain and then latter rain to the fullest.